even been. So don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to act like I know better, but I just have reservations, and I don't think I'm alone in that. And, based on the conference's history, why should I give them the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah, they've never really had a really good one. I mean,
why should I?
Look, the first one, Dan Beebe, was an abject disaster. He was an absolute disaster of a commissioner and led them down the road to their first near destruction. And
Chuck Ninus came in.
And I don't really even count
kind
him
of like almost
a
crisis management.
Yeah. So Chuck Ninus came in and guided them to Bowlesby. Bowlesby comes in and, at first I think, okay, well, this is a guy who's not going to kowtow. He's got the idea of, everything has to be equal, and seemed to me to be a lot more intelligent than Dan Beebe. And there's one thing you can say about Bob Bowlesby. He's one of the, if you want to say who's the smartest guy in the room, a lot of times it might even be Bob Bowlesby. He's a brilliant guy. But when it came down to it, all that brilliance meant nothing when he could have gotten at least one of his teams in the playoff and cut off his nose to spite his face by trying to, oversell the importance of one of the other teams in the league in one game. So it then after that, your opinion changed about Bob Bowlesby, and here we are now into Brett Yormark. So hopefully he's better. He doesn't really, to be the best commissioner, have that big of a mountain to climb either.
Well, here's a couple of things I want to get to as far as some of the responses from Gary. Congrats, Big 12 college football fans, on a great hire for a new commissioner. At some point, Pac-12 Commissioner Kliakoff and Yormark worked together at one point at Fox. He brought that up. That's not the only one. We'll get to all of the various things. But, again, we'd love to hear from you as well and your chance. And we want to hear you and your thoughts about Brett Yormark at 254-339-1122.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest thing I think you could say, like, Dan Beebe's biggest problem was that he was a stooge for Texas. I mean, whatever Texas, he wasn't even really, he was the commissioner in name, but DeLoss Dodds was the commissioner in policy. He was the one who made policy. It's kind of, you could have a kind of a figurehead president, and the Senate majority leader is the one who's telling them, like, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're going to do here. That's kind of how it was in the Big 12 with Dan Beebe and DeLoss Dodds. So this league doesn't have a great history of dominating as commissioners. Now, Bob Bowlesby was better than Dan Beebe, but also had his own crisis to deal with. So, again, we'll see on Brett Yormark.
Yeah, and to be very clear, I'm not trying to poo-poo the hire here. I'm not going to be like, yay, this is great, because I don't know. I'm just being as honest and transparent as I can. Like, hey, I'm glad they hired somebody. I'm glad that Brett Yormark's the guy. His credentials look great. But, is this just because they hired somebody, does this ensure that this is the answer? No. And until I, see some action and some progress and everybody sees a little bit of a plan of what the future is going to look like and why this is the guy of all the people that they could have hired, that they interviewed, whoever that was, why this was the guy, I'm curious to know. And I understand some of why based on his pro sports history and things that he got done. But, let's just go back to the Mack Rhodes interview yesterday. Did he sound 100% sold on Brett Yormark?
I don't think he knew much about him. No,
okay, well, then there's me too. And so, I don't know. Like, he could be great, but I'm not going to sit up here and just root for it because it's a hire because, I think this is one where you really have to have gotten it right. And this is not one where I think you could have, all right, well, if this doesn't work out, we'll just get another guy in 2 years. I don't think you can do that here. And that's why it's even more of a curious hire because it is so outside the box. Like, this is maybe the last hire if you don't play your cards the right way.
I will approach it as I do Dallas Cowboy head coaching hires.
Yeah.
Isn't it exciting that they got Bill Parcells? Yeah, that's great. Oh, he's gone. Isn't it exciting that they got Wade Phillips? Oh, wait, well, we'll see. Well, look what happened. Oh, well, now Jason Garrett, he's the new brilliant wonderkind. Oh, we'll see what happens. Mike McCarthy, that press conference I actually sat through and felt like I feel nothing.
You know what I'm going to approach this as to latch onto that, and maybe this will best explain where I'm coming from? I'm going to approach this like a UT recruiting class. Hey, looks great. Exciting that they signed, but let's see them actually do something first before we give them the national championship. Does that better explain my position on this? Let's just
I think so.
See what happens.
Speaking of which, by the way, they got yet another big boy commit. John T. Cook, a tremendous talent out of DeSoto, yet another five-star type player, and they're on that continued run post Arch Manning. One local note, Rashawn Sanford, a dynamic running back from Harker Heights, who we'll see this year, has committed to play at the University of Houston. He put up huge numbers, over 2,000 yards last year at Harker Heights.
Well, it is amazing just how big the Texas fan base is. You look at the tweets for Arch Manning and as how many people interacted with that, and I know that a lot of that, too, was just the fact that he's Arch Manning. And that last name's a big deal for a lot of people. But, Jonte Cook puts out a video committing to Texas, basically, and just thousands of, responses or replies or retweets or likes or whatever. It's just amazing how that kind of jumps off the page, the amount of fans that they have accumulated.
Oh, they're a monstrous fan base. Yeah, it's maybe the commitment of Arch Manning might have gotten more reaction than any commitment ever since Twitter began.
Yeah.
You know what else, though? I'll tell you, everybody, because of the way that college football is now, you can be excited about a recruiting class, but after 9 of those guys don't play in their freshman or sophomore years, they could all be gone a lot faster than before. And if you're a fan of a rival team who, oh my God, look, this team's just all of a sudden recruiting out of nowhere, just wait. It could be over a lot quicker. You don't have to go, oh, what's going to happen in 4 years? What's going to happen in 18 months?
Yeah. Yeah, here's a quote from Joe on the text line. What I believe this hire shows is that the Big 12 is now starting to put themselves more in the state of emergency than laid back, and I think that's a good thing. It's not 10 years from now. It's what's going to happen. It's next 2 or 3 years with the hiring of Brett Yormark as their new commissioner. I think there's a lot of great administrators out there, but I think to the Big 12's credit, they don't want that right now. 254-339-1122.
Let's go talk to our good friend Diane. Diane, you're on Sigma 365 Radio. Thanks for your call.
Hi. I want to pick up on a quick point that Craig just mentioned about the number of UT fans there are. You know what? Walmart sells a hell of a lot of T-shirts. And then around to what Paul just said about the Dallas Cowboys coach. When you sign up to be the Dallas Cowboys coach, you know that you're going to move to Dallas. Does this guy know that his office is in Arlington? When you look at his resume, he's always been on the East Coast. I'm really concerned that this is the right cultural fit for the Big 12 and the teams of the Big 12 after reviewing what his resume shows in terms of what his past accomplishments have been and where he's been. I mean, his wife's one of the Sotos from the restaurant empire. Are we going to get a Soto's in Dallas now? How's that going to work?
That would be great. I do know
I
this.
hope it works out.
Diane, great point, and Craig brought that up as well. What was the reaction when Baylor hired Matt Rule?
Yeah, he was from the Northeast and all of that jazz. People didn't, a very small amount of people on a private message board mostly did not like Matt Rule because he was from Jersey, even though they didn't have enough respect to even get where he was from, right? That's what you're alluding to. And he turned out to be good for a couple of years, yeah.
And there were some, even when he turned him around to 7-6 and then also to a Sugar Bowl, that still would call him Jersey boy. Yeah, it was one of those things. And so, if somebody from Texas or in Dallas was hired by one of the sports or leagues in New York, would they have to deal with the same type of, they're from Texas. I don't know, maybe so. I get that. Diane, you make a very good point. Look, Craig made this point yesterday. Ames, Iowa, Lawrence, Kansas, Waco, Texas, Lubbock, Texas. These are places that have nothing or anything to do with what he is probably and where he's lived. He did go to Indiana and Bloomington. So that may be a fair question for him when we get a chance to do that at Big 12 Media Days.
And that's
Gregory, go ahead.
And that's all. I've never finished my thought on Jonte Cook. That's a really big commit for Texas. I was trying to get to just how massive that is. The response, though, was huge, and his commitment's even bigger. But, to the thing I said yesterday, that was kind of my point was, I understand that it's outside the box. You've done the whole Heartland of America thing, but this guy is so not anything that the Big 12 has been, and some people say, great, that's what it needs to be. I mean, I look at him more of like he's a dude with TV connections. That's where I see this hire making sense. Because what arena is he going to go build? Like, what does it matter that he built Barclays? What does that really have to do with anything other than, okay, he knows sponsors? If he can get sponsors and he can oil up somebody and get a massive TV deal or at least the best TV deal possible for the Big 12, then his tenure will have been a success. But outside of those couple of things and having those connections, I don't know how he makes any sense.
Well, one of the quotes from the press release was, I'm here to listen, learn. Okay, that's part. It could be a part of it. Find ways to add value, add resources. And then he talked about shining the light on the importance of college football. His strength may be TV connections and networks. That's huge right now. As we all have discussed, the Big 12 moving forward has to deal in a grant of rights or a new television contract that will not include Texas and Oklahoma. So the other 2 or 3 or others that were interviewed for this job are 10. I would think that was almost a prerequisite of what is their experience when it comes to that. As far as marketing, the fact that I'm the old guy, and you'd think I'd be the more conservative here, but you also, both of you have said, whatever they have been doing before has not worked. So that's the part, to me, that is unique and interesting.
Well, Mack Rhoades said that as much yesterday as well. And my point in that is, to Diane's point, he does not know Ames, Iowa. He does not know Waco, Texas. He does not know a lot of these places based on what we know about him. Now, maybe secretly in his personal life that doesn't get reported on, he's visited all of those places, has relatives there, and is really ingrained in the Midwest and the Southwest and the other schools that are going to be joining, because we can't forget about BYU and Cincinnati and Houston and UCF. So it's not like it's going to be what it's always been in that regard anyways. But while I do agree there needs to be a change in the mentality, I do also think you have to have some idea of what you're working with. And that's where I see the disconnect, is that this does not scream a Big 12 familiar guy at all. So how is a guy who has no idea, and to our knowledge, and I may be wrong on that, but how's a New Yorker, East Coast guy who, I know there's the Matt Rule example, what have you, but this is a little bit different. There's being a football coach of a team. If you're a good football coach, I think you can go pretty much anywhere and be a good football coach, for the most part. I don't think that works in the business world necessarily. And I think it's one thing to build Barclays or have a hand in that, and it's an entire other thing to basically secure the future of an entire conference in a landscape that even the people who have been in it for 25 years don't even quite have a grasp on right now. So those are where my concerns are coming from. I don't think you have to play to the cornfields of Iowa or to the whatever, the mountains of BYU, but I do think you kind of have to know a little something about it and be able to pitch that. And so that's what I'm curious to see, and that's all I was trying to say yesterday, is how does he put a new spin on the Big 12? Because you're right, you can't go with the old ho-hum Big 12 the way that it's been. But you also can't pretend that it's the Brooklyn Nets and just change the jerseys.
Good points. Great points. Matt in D.C.